FPX come out top of the group, even with standings. Like, I think,
Woo!
like, if we actually had the full 5 players there,
That's
when they're playing the best, like, FPX is the best team in the world.
Trying to bring in one of the wrinkliest brains I know. It's his birthday. Everybody make some noise for Ryan motherfucking Central. Let's go.
That's like the second time I've had like a birthday joke this year. It's been nice to get away from that. I think
Only
more
2
than
instead of
anything.
150. Nice.
Yeah, you got to take it easy when you're 212. So yeah.
Ryan, what is up, man? Obviously, haven't seen you in a bit, mate. How's things?
Yeah, it's been good. Been easing back into doing EMEA, LCQs on the horizon as well, work-wise. So it's just a genuine chance to like enjoy Copenhagen, actually physically there as well. So I don't need to deal with the stress and the bullshit of prepping for an event. I could just go and watch it and have a chill time and see everybody anyway. So I think I'm the reason why Mitch isn't on today as well, because I keep team flashing him when we're playing in 5-stack. So I think he's probably spoken to Mark and to the others at BMT to make sure that we're never on a podcast again.
Right. Because I would suggest
so
that most of his analysis comes as a result of being blind. So it never really stopped him before.
At least he predicted NA,
work,
right?
His mouth clearly fucking does. So yeah,
he predicted NA for Masters, so he got something right, at least 50%. But then I kind of get the flashing part too, because I have the same issue with Flat Chat boys. Maybe that's why I'm also here doing this podcast and they're traveling, because I just flash boys too much in Masters.
You're playing KO as well for the Boomer team, so
yeah, exactly.
You're in a position where I do the same. If the others are whining about me team flashing them, I try and do it more. Like, I'm like, Tom, look at me, just underhand flashing his face.
Yeah, Guiding Light has a mind of its own. It was supposed to come back with a sprig of olive to tell me that we were close to land. Instead, I just flashed you. Well, unlucky. I guess we've capsized the arc. Unlucky, boys. Let's talk about Copenhagen here and our group setup, right? Because we have one of our groups is fucked. Oh my god. Obviously, again, 4 teams. We have
always
4 teams. Say again.
It's always a fucking thing, isn't it, with groups? Like, it's just there's always some lean one way or the other, and something to complain about. Which you know, usually Riot change it up now and again, but I don't think so this time.
Yeah, no, I think they're gonna stick to this.
Hey, look, at least Optic and Xerxia are not in the same group.
Oof, man. Yeah, God, they got out of that group fucking battered and bruised last time.
To join this one against Guild, Loud, and Crew.
Yeah, so this seems kind of insane, right?
Yeah.
Obviously,
just a little, just a little insane.
Obviously, Optic and Guild going head. This is what happens when Optic get the 2nd seed. We keep forgetting that, right? They are not the top seed in their region, so they get unleashed on the rest of the world. This is kind of messed up. I mean, Group B, worth a look as well. Fun plus Phoenix, Xerxia, DRX, Norception. This is an interesting one to me. I don't know what you guys think about it.
Yeah, I think it's more on who's going to be able to qualify out of like Xerxia, DRX, and Norception. Because unfortunately, with Fun plus Phoenix, there's still the issue of what's the actual roster, who's the actual roster that's going to be playing for FPX in Copenhagen. And even just a couple of minutes ago, I think there was a reply off an original tweet from George Geddes that was mentioning that there is now potentially still on track that Angel should be playing for FPX in Copenhagen, but they still have to replace Xiao and Sugetsu. So that's still like a big part of the core, and an insane fragger in Sugetsu that they're losing going into the brackets. So it's optimistic that Angel will attend, but it's pessimistic, or it's pessimistic to think that they'll go far.
I mean, EMEA obviously plagued by this for obvious reasons. Looking at this group, you know, how many reasonable people are expecting FPX to? I mean, we have no fucking info, do we? I just don't feel good even talking about it because all these huge players just may not sort of be able to make it.
I do kind of dislike the take of, oh, if 2 out of 5 players are missing on a team, they shouldn't go. We should send Mech instead. And it's like, first of all, like Mech's in a similar boat, right? Like maybe they have their visas, but at this point, probably running out at the very least.
Send Liquid again and keep the team alive. It's the only way they're going to stay together.
Sliggy's like, all right, I'll go back again. Just like, it's just this like
Cinderella
limbo
run.
that he's constantly stuck in, just brought back to international events. But it's who else would you sort of expect to be there? Like this isn't going to be something that is going to be just an issue now and again. Like quite likely that FPX can go champions as well at this point. Them and Fnatic. If Guild drop out, then it's going to be FPX and Fnatic making it to champions from EMEA. We're just going to keep repeating the cycle, right? So it's one of those things where like I want those FPX players, even if it's just fucking two of them, to be able to go to international events because they earned that. It's also really good at showing the talent of the scene, right? Because we know who the stand-ins are. It's Masked who played on Hookahs, who very, like VRL Polaris, sort of bottom of the
Level.
barrel in regards to regional leagues at the moment because so many other orgs have moved elsewhere. Looks pretty good. And Cider, who's had sort of experience for Wave and stuff like that. So these aren't gooder players as Baddy G, for example, but they might pop off and they might be able to get teams, and it just sort of shows the talent in the region. Also, FPX are very good at playing when they have stand-ins anyway. They had Ardis being out with COVID. Angel came in, played on the Jet, and they 13-0'd Fnatic in stage one. Like, who else can do that?
Yeah, that's pretty nutty. Obviously, Baddy G's a lot busy winning VRLs, I think, over in France. He doesn't give a fuck about this situation right now. One boy be chilling. But I just think I bring them up first because they're probably the hardest team to really give any thoughts on. I don't know if you have anything, Dan, on this team, but I don't know what to expect from a team, even as good as Angel is at molding people very quickly, as we've sort of seen. I don't know what to expect from this roster.
The entire thing about the group is that you have so many questions for this team especially, and everyone else in the entire group, because you have a little bit more of inconsistency coming for Xerxia and Norception, where they might be able to just take advantage enough of that case with the players that they're able to bring in, but it's so difficult because it's something that they can't control. So at that point, you're looking at the group B in terms of, besides DRX, you're looking at who will be able to deal with all the situations in time and address all the problems that they had in time.
Yeah. Don't know about this one. MEA obviously having to really cobble rosters together on short notice has kind of been a theme lately. It is the way it is. I want to talk about another team who, if I'm thinking thematically, are propelled forward by the spirit of Bonka. He's alive, but his spirit, his indelible mark has been made on this sort of team. Guild are going to Copenhagen. Big news for this organization, of course. However, the way they exited the EMEA playoffs was pretty. I mean, they looked really limp when they went out against FPX, right? I think in two of the maps they only got 4 rounds. Those maps were like Fracture and Split as well. The kind of Trump maps that you really want to at least have a pocket strategy for. What do we think about this Guild team? Because we've been waiting a long time to see these guys turn up internationally, but I just want to remind people that they didn't look very good in that last game in the EMEA.
They are the EMEA XSET pretty much, right? Getting a lot of like 4th places for the longest of times during the EMEA qualifiers, and I think they actually had a pretty good look, a pretty strong look, and with continuous improvement going in through event to event. Now that they finally make it, though, I still find that I know I trolled to not have players like Leo on in my top 20, but I think they definitely have a great roster to be able to make some heads turn. Is it going to be a good enough roster though to face off against Optic in round 1 where they could win? I don't think so, but I think that's the beauty of them also being able to start in groups. They won't fall into that trap of like the guard starting off in playoffs. They can learn a little bit more. They're going to be right into the moment and warmed up with everybody else when they're starting an event. Less jitters, I think, to be able to start off in groups. So we'll see if they're going to be able to make a mark. But I'm still on the Copium from this group.
Yep, I smell gigacopium from you. They have to play against Optic, right? In that first matchup. Jeez, that's a fucking tall order for this team. But that would be it's a great conversation starter if you're still, stuck 3 years ago, obsessed about, NA versus EU. This is right where you want to be, Ryan. The box seat to the fucking two regions.
Yeah, like arguably the best team in the world versus a team that's attending its first international event. I can see it already. Just the first map goes Optic, all those little NA erections pop up, and it's away we go, chops away for fucking Copenhagen. I will say, the way that Guild played against Mech was perfect. And Mech were playing decently in playoffs. Like, they can limp and look weak all the way through group stages, but there's just something about them that shows up when it matters. Like these players have always shown up when it matters, I think. But for Guild, everybody played perfectly. Trek's moving over to that duelist role looks a lot more impactful, like it suits him. He played duelist before when he was on OG and stuff like Honk. I don't think that it's too out there to say that Guild are not going to go to playoffs or get through,
Okay.
but I do think that people are just generally underestimating them based on the
Yeah.
fact that they've never been at an international event before, right? That it's just
Mm-hmm.
Loud's in that group, Optics in that group, there's no chance. And I don't think that's inherently fair because we have never seen this Guild team on an international event. Leo might pop off more than anybody would expect. This whole team has that potential, and to be fair, like Loud and Optic could turn up and be under. I bear in mind that Ascend won champions, right? So there's been the examples of teams being underappreciated and then coming in and taking some serious wins. So
Mm-hmm.
I can suspect that for Guild, but I wouldn't say it's likely.
And I think the improvement as well for Guild is I think Safe for me as well. Safe at some point went like he was known to be when they first started like a Cypher player, a KJ player, being a Sentinel player pretty much, right? And now that he's maybe like just before the patches came out with Fade coming out, he switched over to a Jet, getting a lot more duelist role in that sense. And I think now this meta like suits Guild quite well into that reason as to why they're able to make some heads turn and qualify here into Copenhagen is because now you could potentially have almost like a semi double duelist comp where Safe could still opt, could still play aggressive angles on defense, could still get information just like a Sentinel. So he's basically playing two roles in one at this point that he's been accustomed to when he first started playing Valorant. So that as a whole, I think, does help into the confidence of Guild getting into this tournament.
Okay, but I mean, still, I would not say confidence is extremely high for this team, especially based on the group they find themselves in, their first round opponent, and who awaits them in the lower part of their bracket. I mean, Vans, we had you and Mitch actually go back through the sort of the Japanese finals because
Yeah.
his next team, I think, for many in the West, are probably a little bit harder to place, unless you're Nostromo in the chat and you think they're gonna butt blast everybody. But let's talk about Norception here as a roster that I think that we saw them compete at a sick event in a pretty high pressure environment,
Mhm.
and they looked great, right?
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, yeah. Let's
Yeah.
let's have some caveats here for this team. What do you expect from Norception?
To be honest, it might be a hot take on my end because I think a lot of people are expecting Norception to do quite well. I think they're gonna do okay. I think they could still put like a really good fight against DRX in the first round. I think they're very similar to DRX in a sense that it's very almost one-dimensional into like, okay, let's hit the A site, let's just get the A site. You want to pull rotations, you want to run defaults, doesn't really happen. DRX are really gonna do anything like that? Maybe we'll default, but we're just always gonna be like on a 3-2 split or on a full exec more than getting any lurks. So when it comes down to these type of like, hey, let's 1v1 duels, let's get these fights on executions, I think there are some rounds where Meteor could pop off and actually come in and frag out with the rest of the team and make it very difficult against DRX. But once you're gonna start playing against potentially maybe even more strategically sound players or teams, then I think you're going to start seeing the chinks in the armor, like some gaps in the strategies and the macro here of this team. Again, just because when you watch this game against the against Zeta Division, when we actually finally had timeouts for Zeta Division and XQQ was calling out into like the one-dimensional strats of Norception, instantly we saw a comeback from Zeta Division, and it was a very close game moving forward, at least for that map, at least for that half.
I mean,
it really comes down to, do we really think that Norception can perform to the same level as we saw them on that grand finals? Because when you watched them before, they like to play aggressive, kind of like a paper Rex style in some scenarios of going in, but it doesn't look as planned as sometimes we see on the other side. So to me, that is the question. If they can perform to this level, you already have so many advantages, right? You won against a team that made a pretty deep run for Masters 1. You played against in front of a bunch of people. I don't even know how many people were in
Like
that.
12,000.
16,000, I think.
Some stupid,
Yeah, you
Yeah.
already have that going on
Maybe
for them,
more.
so it's great. But now I just want to see that consistency. And I know Vancy said that some people expect them to make a deep run. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that many people say that. Maybe just some weird takes because people like
Like
the
Wyatt.
aggression, the aggressive playstyle. But I mean, is it gonna happen? I don't. I feel like there is a chance, yes, but it just depends on what they're able to get going on in this week that they have.
What do you reckon, Ryan? What do you got for me?
I haven't seen too much of Norception. I think I saw like a half here or there, but I
Mhm.
do think that it's kind of silly to sort of assume that Norception is going to do what Zeta Division was able to do,
Right.
at least to an extent, what Zeta Division were able to do at
Third
Reykjavik.
place.
Yeah, it's you're sort of setting the expectations high on a team that know that they've got those expectations ready for them, right? So I do think it's a doable group for them to get out of playoffs. If FPX do have stand-ins, I think that's a big advantage to the DRX and Norception being able to qualify. But I kind of see him in the same way of like Xerxia, where they could bottom out. They could just completely like falter in areas where you sort of expect them to do relatively well, especially in the group stages for Xerxia last time. But for Norception, you can just overdo it really. It's like magic is best when you don't expect it. So the fact that people
Yeah.
are expecting this kind of thing to happen is a little bit out there, really. It's kind of like me saying that like Guild could make sort of playoffs and that kind of thing. It's just a little bit too much. I'd love to see it, but I think that when a team comes into a tournament like this, just a step at a time. Also, you got to
Yeah.
bear in mind, like
They're a
Division
victim of
all but
edginess.
confirmed for champions, right? So
Yeah.
there is an element of like Norception need to do very well for it to be worthwhile for them to get enough points that they overtake Zeta for playoffs, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, sure. I feel like people love the Japanese region. They want to predict them to win. For example, Nostromo will get an apology from everybody on the show if they make top 2. Or I'm going to ban
I'm
him
happy
so
to be
fucking hard.
wrong, but
Yeah, me too. I'm
no,
also really happy
it's
to
like
ban the guys,
everybody's
so.
gonna have like a magical like golden road journey. Just like that's not how it works. We can't be like the winners of Copenhagen, Xerxia, DRX.
These people watching too
Guild,
much fucking anime, dude.
Team Liquid are there again. They win as well. Everybody's a winner. It's there has to be losers, and I don't think this is Norception's tournament with all of the teams coming in with a point to prove. Even fucking Optic, they won the last event, right? And now that they have to go through groups, they're going to be fighting for that spot again.
Yep. But it's a win-win. If they do make it, that's such a sick story. If they don't, well, we didn't really expect them to at the same time. It's the beauty of these international sort of tournaments. And hey, they're an underdog, playing with house money to a degree, but nothing that you guys have said makes me feel like they're going to be able to contend against these more established teams who have more reps under their belt, who have more experience playing internationally. So something just to bear in mind if you're trying to put a pick and bracket together out there.
At least they have the fan buff, right? They are able to play in front of like 16,000 people. If they can actually make it up to the top 3 or that weekend, the crowd's only like what 2,000 in Copenhagen. So you know,
if Norception are in those games where there's an audience, I'll buy a fucking jersey and I'll be their number one fan. I swear. that's sort of what I'm expecting, right? Especially if there's no EMEA teams and it's all. Like
I want to see that shit, Ryan. I want to see the fucking crane camera going through the fucking crowd, and then that's you standing up with the Norception jersey.
Ryan as an optimist in any way, shape, or form is a fucking incredible cameo. You know, I'm ready for that.
Especially when it's almost ironically doing it, but
yes,
dedicated to the craft anyway.
Yeah. Hey, don't worry. Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be a lot of fun to see them compete, but again, they need to get to that crowd stage, right? It's a pretty good point. There's some games that they need to get through on their way. Let's talk LATAM. Let's talk Brazil. Now, Crew really left a pretty strong mark on all of us, and then they went to Reykjavik, and then maybe we started to realize, okay, look, you know, this team obviously still has work to do. They had an incredible run, but reality bites sometimes. This Crew team, though, obviously they came through from the LCQ, pretty convincing victory against NIP, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, devastating loss for them here against Leviathan. But what should we be expecting from a team that has, in the past, shocked the world's very best to their core?
They are back at looking strong and looking like a dominant team, and that's what I said. If you really want to, I want to not bite into the groupium again, but I feel like it just meant to happen because this team, I mean, they've been looking solid. I know one of the things that I think it was Messina who tweeted that they intention. I'm not saying this is true, by the way, but they said that they intentionally lost the grand final so they could guarantee 2 spots for Latin America because they knew they could win against NIP. And now this also, clearly, I'm not saying this is true. I'm just saying what they said. I'm just repeating what has been said. The reason why I believe and why I have them even potentially upsetting Loud is because when these teams are practicing, Crew, Leviathan, Loud, NIP, when these teams are going against each other, the way that they practice is scrimming each other. So the level, and this is something that it was Klaus who said in the interview for Last Chance Qualifier, he said that the level for Brazil and Latin America South, at least, is at the same level because they're always practicing and they have the confidence of reading the enemy. Again, Crew has also never lost against Brazil. It continues that streak. It continues to be with the same amount of confidence. So they're looking better. They're really praising the new coaches that they got. Leaso, who was a coach for 90 or 9Z, and now they got this new coach. They got the old analyst, and they're really praising. They're really saying how good it is. They have some really cool bonus rounds. They have some really good eco rounds as well that they want to implement. So I'm just saying, like, everything is looking like they can at least make it out of groups. I don't know, going against Optic, I feel like it would be a little bit more difficult, but everyone else, I do feel like they can definitely beat Guild and Loud potentially as well.
I'm gonna need a little bit more convincing than that, to be honest. I don't know. I didn't watch the Crew and NIP game, but the Crew and Leviathan was I don't know. I think that
but you watch the ones before.
Yeah.
The
Remember
other
Dan
two,
said that
and
one
then
is not really
you'll see
indicative.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a game that if it was still a game that was qualifying for Masters, so I'm pretty sure you still had to play to your best capabilities, right?
It's not assuming that yeah, I think the assumption is not that they threw, but they were uncharacteristically underperforming in that series.
So
they were like
that is
10
what I'm
rounds
saying.
down in a row against Crew in that Leviathan on that last map, man. Tragic.
It was two things that day. One, there were a lot of tech issues, and for some reason, I feel like it has to do with the mental of Crew that people always say is not the greatest. But every time there's tech issues or something that Crew cannot control, they lose. And we saw in Masters, we saw it before. Every single time there's an external issue, is a Crew that's losing. So as long I really feel like as long as that's not happening, they have all the confidence to win that first second match potentially and see how far they're able to make it. But again, and the thing that drives me insane is people saying Crew, I don't know, they're not looking that good, and it's like they've been looking incredibly good, incredibly consistent, even more than before. And the scores that you see from them, the composition changes as well. Now they're playing Neon with Kesney Neon with Naxted as well. Now on the Chamber, who is the issue that I had before because he was looking kind of inconsistent with Jet, but now he's on the Chamber permanently. Looks even better than Takolija, which was another.
I'm the opposite though. Because
No.
I actually see Nags on Chamber, and I think that it actually slows down how Crew used to play. Because when you actually had Nags, and then you also had Kesnit playing the double duelist, and they could just start actually getting a lot more value when Nags decided to just hold W with Kesnit, and then actually get those trades and create the space for the team. Now that he's playing a Chamber, he's actually limited as to how aggressive he could play. And I think that actually adds a little bit of a gap into the rest of the playstyle of Crew. And if you're looking at Crew in general from last year, let's say in 2021, you would say, okay, I could probably put, Kesnit into the top 20. I could put Klaus into the top 20. Maybe even Delzeek into the top 20 because he had some great moments as well in 2021. But now you're going against, for example, Loud, head-to-head against Aspas. Who would probably take it? Probably Aspas. Les even got better. Les is actually a player that plays a Chamber that actually looks pretty good, much better than he did on Cypher now. That is a positive out there too. Sadak, can you actually play better than Sadak? And then you're going head-to-head against Optic. Are you better than Optic mechanically? I don't see this for Crew.
Okay, let's stay within this region. We're gonna rehash. I know there were more chances for this croupium. This is fine. Listen, we expect this from our sort of regional specialists. I mean, the only thing, Dry, that separates you and Seth right now is that you don't have a bottle of soju in your hand or whatever is the liquor from that area.
She's got
You
the pink
also
hair,
haven't
though.
called anyone a limp dick fuck up yet. So, but outside of that, this
Oh,
is
he
this is
told
where
me
we are
about
now.
because we were at Champions when he sent that, and he was so proud of it. He was like, I sent this thing to Valorantin, and I just went off. I don't remember what I said, but I just was talking until I was red in the face for a minute. Well, I definitely said this, and I was like, I'll keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely iconic moment for sure. So Leviathan are the top seed from the combined LATAM and Brazilian region, as we have named them, just because of how their format works. We won't see them. We've already. So Dry's going to give us a cliff notes here because we've already talked about it.
Yeah.
Again, for those that are just coming in, joining the show now, wondering, like, what would you say? I guess if someone asked you whether these teams are this team's a real deal, Dryad.
What is? Sorry. Is that Leviathan walking onto the stage with the Chinese dragon from like?
Well,
That's fucking
it's
awesome.
is their mascot their
That's awesome.
Leviathan.
It does look like a Chinese dragon, yeah. But I mean, look at their logo.
Yeah.
It's a fucking
Yeah.
you know,
No, of course. I just think that it's fucking awesome that he walked in with that.
I can't believe Vance was about to accuse him of cultural appropriation.
Of course
That's just
not.
unreal.
Of course not. I just thought it was fucking dope that they're walking in with like a snake dragon, man.
Anyway, snakes aside, when we've talked about this sort of walkout
These guys were
here.
more coordinating than Crew were in that finals. To be fair, Jesus.
All right, give us the DL on Leviathan. What we should expect of this young team.
I think you can expect potentially some upsets because when you look at, and we talked about it before, but when you look at the playoffs teams, the ones that are going to make it, you look at Fnatic, you look at XSET, you look at PaperX, and then you look at them, it seems like everyone is thinking that Leviathan can be the weakest out of all four. And in a way, I feel like, yes, it does make sense, but I wouldn't be surprised if they make a deep run, like a deeper run than people are expecting. This is a team that, as long as you put Tekalija in those positions, as long as you support him in the way that he wants to, and as long as you can have King being a little bit more consistent, they have something to prove. They're insane mechanically, and they have some, again, the great coaches that they stole. I want to say stole, but they got from Crew. So you have that going on for them, but I am concerned because I wish they would play since the group stage. I feel like they need that practice. They don't have international experience. A lot of these players are very young, and if they're taken down right away, I feel like that would be why. It wouldn't really be in terms of the meta that they're playing, this play style that they have, because I feel like overall it's good enough to where they are.
Yep. Okay. This, by the way, this is the kind of segment we could do an entire episode on. So we're going to move pretty quickly in between these. Why, Dan, do you think that Loud could actually lose to Crew? Obviously, I think a lot of people see Loud and how far they went last time in Reykjavik. They probably think that was a hot take.
Yeah, for sure. And I love Loud. I love Aspas. I love Les. I feel like they got the chance to prove themselves, and I think it's great. But I feel like people do not realize that same level is being matched, maybe behind the scenes by Crew, by Leviathan in some cases, but mostly by Crew. They're able to match up the same level of playstyle, and when you think about Aspas, you think about the insane mechanics and how good he is at his role. And I feel like Kesnet is able to do the same and is able to make an actually banger match to watch. So when they have the practice going on, when they're always playing against each other, there's no way you're expecting Crew to be way less. At least, it's going to be a close match, and it can really go for any of them, but you can't just count Crew out because you haven't seen too much of them before.
Yeah. Okay. So I think this speaks more to the development of the entire region than than maybe just them being off the boil, which is great, which is kind of what we were asking for, right? Because let's think back to like the first time we saw Brazil at an international event, and like Vikings were like, what is a post-plant meta? What is a Viper? And they had to try and adapt like halfway through.
What is an Astra?
Right. So we're much further down the sort of the evolutionary trail on that. Fans, Do you think Optic are gonna win Masters? You're an NA fanboy. Things kind of a safe
No.
guess. No, this team. Okay, why?
The competition's way better than it was in Masters 1. I'm actually quite happy at least that we get into a group potential that, or at least into a bracket where Optic will be able to play. Actually, they're playing the MEA team from the get-go. I think that's a great test, and it's even better that if they win against Guild, it's going to be high copium and be like, oh, see, Optic could actually beat EMEA, but then every EMEA fan is going to put an asterisk to say, oh, but it's just Guild, or fourth strongest team in the MEA that get shit on in Fnatic, blah, blah, blah. I still think that they'll do just fine. They could get definitely a deep run across the board. They have a great roster. And I'm one of those people that actually put Victor very, very high in my top 20, where people might think I'm off the goop. And I think that he's able to do quite well in this new type of strategy that's being implemented both by FNS and by Chet. Any role that he's necessitated to play, he's actually doing it. And look at the roles he's playing. He's playing Neon. He's playing fucking KO. He's trying to create space for the team. And when he actually has to play a duelist, for example, a Jet on Breeze, he's fucking killing it. So I think that overall, he's one of those best flexible players that we currently have at Masters that actually would be one of the winning conditions that allows Optic to go into a deep run. But for the reason why I say Optic is not going to be able to win or may not win Masters 2 is just because the competition is so high going into this event right now. I think that it's going to be a tough run. I'd love to see it because I'd love to see a back-to-back and the first time that being done by an NA team. But Loud wants to rematch. Xerxia, PRX, DRX, everybody wants the revenge against the North American team. I think Optic is like the new Sentinels of 2022, that they're the team to beat. So everybody's going to be looking at them.
Ryan, you think they're going to get out of groups at least, right? Copium?
There are 3 reasons why I think Optic's going to win Copenhagen. Actually, the first is that they lost 2 series at Reykjavik and still won the tournament.
Yep.
There's not many teams that are able to do that. The second is like the way that Optic adjust constantly with their comps and their ideas and their set plays. They know how easy it is to read into teams. You've got so many websites now that can literally break down every default that they do. I think it's one of the reasons why Optic constantly change up what agents they're playing, what comps. Even if they're winning on a map, they still want to change stuff up. I do think that they were a little bit easy to read for XSET in the final, but that obviously, if they all had COVID and stuff, that it's going to have an impact, right? And XSET are very for a team to be able to beat stuff like that. But they're kind of like the main 2. Like Optic could just lose to Guild, but I still have faith in them to like bounce back. And if there's a rematch against Guild later on, in the same way that they had against Xerxia and in the same way that they had against Loud, they have that ability to pull themselves back from the brink where a lot of teams really start to falter. And I think that's kind of like a big difference at this stage where people are expecting a lot from Loud, people are expecting a lot from XSET. There are a lot of teams coming into this, like Leviathan, Guild, no doubt Norception, that are going to go in sort of guns blazing. Like, they're not going to be too panicked about what's going on. That I think Optic are like, all right, we lost to these guys. They're cringe. We're going to come back and beat them the next time that we play them. Whereas other teams might completely fall off, much like the Guard did. I don't think it was inexperience. I think it was just such a short time to adjust to teams overall that made it very difficult to play on an international event in that way.
I love this because this is something that I observed during last Masters is that Optic never lose to the same team twice in a row, right? Every time they lost, they bounce back in like a really, crazy because, Chet is the kind of person that, I think his demeanor makes it a little easier to underestimate him because he's very low key, low energy. Like he's not cocky. He's not, he doesn't exactly employ an extended vocabulary. You know what I mean? So people don't exactly, expect this, but that team was unreal how they're able to bounce back every time they'd lost. They'd lose, and everyone was like, "What the fuck is this team is?" And then they'd turn around.
You can't
and
read that stuff and run it back. Like you can't categorize that kind of that play, and it's a lot of experience on that team too, more so than I think any other team on a LAN stage and internationally for sure.
Fans, I could kiss you. We just got that fantastic sync on the L ratio in chat. That wasn't discussed earlier on. That's why That's why we're meant to be co-casters. You know what I mean? If I move to Valorant,
Exactly.
I'll take you, bro. Sorry,
Stop
Riv.
talking
Get
shit
fucked,
about
mate.
Riot so we could actually get a fucking cast together again.
Anyway, someone with actual insight. I cut you off, Dryad. Yeah, what you gonna add to the Optic narrative?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah. In the international stage, at least for Masters One, like you said, Mitch, they don't lose rematches. They didn't lose against Xerxia. In a way, they didn't lose against Guard when they actually got to face each other right away, and they didn't lose against Loud. So the information, and we know these players already. We know that they're incredibly consistent, and the things that Chet practices behind the scenes. I mean, it gives them their results. So I don't see a scenario where they don't make it at least to, I don't know, semifinals. It just, they have so much going on that even thinking about another scenario, even if I love and I feel like Loud and Crew are insane, especially in that group, it's an Optic that really knows how to adjust, and it's knowing that they're playing this group stage instead of being the first seed, it's just playing to their strength. I remember we got the chance to talk to Chad here right after Masters 1,
Yeah.
and he said he actually liked the group stage. It gives them more practice and it gives them more information, more actual experience that the players need. So everything just seems to be in favor of them right now.
You also can't mention you can't talk about Optic without talking about Ye, of course, right? Like
Yeah.
that guy's fucking insane. Like if I remember off the top of my head, like 102 or up to 109 first bloods during the group stages in North America or playoff stage in North America, which converted also into participating to 43% of the first bloods, where they actually were able to convert that into a win. When Ye gets a first blood, they win around 43% of the time. So that's pretty
The
fucking
conversion
insane.
rate is fucked up. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's
I'm
or
pretty
sorry,
sure Enzo
out
has a
of-
better conversion rate though. I think we
yeah,
covered that last
and
week.
sorry, I mean out of all the rounds they win on 5 versus 4, Ye's 42% of those first bloods. That's what I meant by that stat.
Yeah.
So like him being able to
yeah,
get
sick.
that type of impact on defense and as well on offense is huge. The closest in North America, I think, were like maybe even Dicey, but they didn't qualify. But for the team that qualified as XSET, if you're looking at Cryocells and you're looking at Zekin, I think there were like 24 to 26%, both of them each. So it's insane how much value Ye brings into the firepower for Optic.
Yeah. Okay. So I remember when we talked to MCE and said, what happened with the guard? You know, what happened? And he was sort of like, yeah, look, obviously we had to adjust to this setting. Also, we got fucking dicked down by Jing. When they played against Paper Rex, like the insight that I got from them is that they felt helpless playing against their style. Let's talk about this team. One of the most promising rosters coming out of APAC. They're always exciting. They're always fun. Their players are very easy to get behind. Just how deep do Paper Rex run? Obviously, bear in mind they're starting in the playoffs, so they're chilling. They watch group stage go by.
Yeah.
How deadly are these guys?
Paper X in group stages kind of reminds me of Dragon Ball Z, where Vegeta and Nappa come down to Earth, and you've got they just basically for fun just beat up like
Fucking run
Krillin,
up.
kill Yamcha, and get Chaozu to blow up on them.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that with them playing series where they're picking up the Phoenix and stuff like that. Like this team just doesn't look phased by anybody. And I think the fact that they play like this, you sort of watch them in the region and you sit and think, there's no way that Forsaken plays like this on an international stage.
And then
He did, and he absolutely fucking took everybody back. Like it's the fact that Paper X don't slow down for anybody. It's surprisingly like well thought out. Some of their executes, how they use in utility, how they can think on the fly. That adaptability again is something that you only really see from teams like Optic, just thinking on your feet kind of thing. So, Paper X, I think that APAC region is much more intelligent if people let it on. As somebody that casted a lot of like SCA stuff in the early days, technically it was a terrible region, but the thing about it, I think Anders said this in the video as well, they take stuff from NA, they take stuff from EMEA, they take stuff from Korea. They're cherry picking the best out of all regions that suit them. So Paper X is like this amalgamation of all the aggressive teams around the world to make something that is very hard for teams to really counter unless they specifically watch every single VOD that Paper X have been doing.
Mm-hmm. And like to talk about the crazy plays, one of the examples is watching the Icebox game versus Xerxia in this best of 5, where like they even do wall boosts from Jing onto Forsaken, so he could double updraft from Orange and then get a dagger kill up on top of and towards spawn. Another one where they combine like a Fade Haunt into a Sage Wall self boost from Jing to hunt down the person that got pinged. Like, it's incredible how aggressive they are on the defense and how it still pays off and it still works from last year until today. And the good part about it too is that they're also as hyper aggressive when it comes down to the execution on their attack. That also again overwhelms a lot of these players in their set positions. Like, look at Forsaken's bind, look at PRX's bind with a Yoru in there. It's pretty fucking insane how much synergy goes into the amount of utility that they throw out. The timing that they have on everything for layer to layer to get a spike plant down, or just not allowed to get a spike plant because it's just fucking killing everybody when they get into the site anyways. Starting more and more to think that PRX might now be, they had a deep run, which is why I never really considered them a dark horse and like a favorite to win. But I think they're like the dark horse of the favorites, if that exists as a term.
If someone can take Optic down, I would say it's Paper X because of that fast playstyle. Even though Optic, they're also sometimes down to do that fast pace. I don't think anyone between all the teams that we have going on, no one can match Paper X in that playstyle. They just
fuck, they're
you
good to
can't.
watch.
You can't.
God,
if
it just doesn't
Xerxia-
make any sense, man. It's just so good to watch.
Yeah. And if Xerxia did it twice versus Optic already, then potentially even Paper X. But the other thing too is, as I was giving a lot of copium to Paper X, the other thing too is that if they're going to be so hyper aggressive, then teams that expect these kinds of things, that could play a default, that could play just a little bit more slower in the site to understand when a hit is going to be coming inside their spawn, then I feel that could be very easily counterable. And that's something that a team like Optic could also be ready for too, where then Ye just stays in spawn with a fucking headhunter already half aiming in the air and it just swats Forsaken out of the air. That could definitely happen as well.
So let's move on and talk about this Xerxia team then, right? They are not the favorite team coming out of this region, but let's not forget this team was actually pretty nasty in groups, right? It's because, I think Optic, they bounced back so much after losing to them and Xerxia obviously don't get out there. They're a dark horse team here, right? I think it's safe to say that, we're all talking about PRX and PRX are a dark horse of the favorites. So where does that put Xerxia then in the grand scheme of things?
Xerxia, like I mentioned, still potentially a dark horse. I think when you're looking at this roster, people still at least don't talk about Surf. I still find that he's an underrated duelist for this team. And Scary is actually probably one of the best controllers that currently exists in the scene. And because there's just so many players and so many good teams, and so many teams that have good personalities that get like the spotlight, that these guys are just like chilling, just like in the backstage, getting ready to get their moment on the stage as well. And once they're able to have that opportunity and have that limelight, I think they're just gonna shine and fucking dominate that stage. And I feel that this could even be one of those stages that could happen. Because, maybe even if they lost like an 0-3 versus Paper X, they still had to play a gruesome BO3 against Team Secret, who were another favorite to qualify for SEA. And they actually had a pretty good showing against that team. And after playing a BO3 against Secret, they had to play a BO5 right after against Paper X. So I think at that point, if you only watch that series and watch that game, then maybe you're underestimating Xerxia and leaving the foot off the gas because those guys are pretty gassed out. You needed a lot of mental to be able to go through 5 maps in total, 6 maps in total actually, to play in that last day. So I still expect that they're able to make a great run. Like I said, able to upset Optic quite a few times already at the international stage. And it's nice that they're going to be able to play against somebody else too, other teams in the group stages, so that they have their moment to
they get to ease in against this FPX, this probably like a weakened FPX team as well.
Yeah.
Ryan, I think you're like muted in Discord, by the way.
I'm just muted overall.
There you
go. Because I made a noise when you sort of said that like they've had success over Optic. I still think this team massively misses Pattypan. Not in the sense of like Surf not performing, because he's been decent to watch. Like he seems to fit the squad mostly, but they don't play Raze or Neon or anything like that. And I think that, playing Jet Chamber is fine, but there's so many maps now where teams run in those kind of like high utility. We're taking the space with a C's and nade combination. I don't think that Xerxia can work alongside that really. So unless they've been practicing a lot of Raze and are ready to sort of show that side of them, I don't expect they're going to be able to do much in groups. I just feel like they're a bit of a meta behind. And I'm not saying that like playing Jet nowadays is throwing, but it obviously depends on the map. Some maps you
Okay.
can play it like
Yeah.
Ascent still, but if you're heading places like Bind, if you're heading places like Split and stuff like that, I think Raze is a bit of a necessity. So lacking that is a bit of a concern for me.
Yeah. Question marks for me about this team, especially that
They'll
group
be
is
just
also
fine.
the group's up in the air because they get through FPX and then it's DRX or Norception, right? Maybe there's a
I
war.
only see DRX winning against them.
Yeah.
I feel like Xerxia could make a nice run in the lower bracket.
Yeah, it's like it would be maybe like a Xerxia versus Norception. I know we're really underrating FPX here, but I just don't think it's reasonable to put them in the conversation when they've
Right.
replaced 2 players. So,
Yeah.
so like that would be a very
Valid.
telling game, I think, and potentially quite an exciting one. Let's talk about our top seed from North America. Traditionally, with our small sample size, not exactly the place you want to be, right? So XSET at their first international event, if I'm not mistaken, will be circumventing the group stages. It'll be playoffs for this team. Let's talk about let's use the data from this game, right? This Optic matchup, which was pretty competitive, to try and set expectations for this team. What should we expect from XSET? We've already said Ryan sort of feels like there's 3 reasons why he expects Optic to win the whole thing. So where does that put this team?
Oh, was that to me? I wasn't sure.
Oh, anyone really? Yeah, open for him.
I'd say that like Xset have such a good read on their opponents. I feel like for this series especially, they had a real torrid time on their attack, but Optic had an even worse time on their defense. I feel like they had a good understanding of what Optic like to do, what kind of spaces were open for them to exploit. It kind of forced Optic to play super wishy-washy, where it's like, all right, we're going for a B split. Actually, Ye was looking on A, got a kill. We're going to instantly rotate over there, and then they just run, don't check a corner, and 3 of them die in the process. So I think XSET have a good like read and understanding, and I do think that they could be like a top 4-ish team. Like I do see like except Optic being some of the top dogs there. I just kind of think that it's the opposite of Optic. Like we don't know what's going to happen if XSET go into that first game up against a Norception that's feeling themselves, and then suddenly they lose that series, get knocked down to the lower bracket. How do they adjust that quickly, right? So there's too many question marks for me with XSET to really feel like they're the strongest team in NA, especially when there's so many question marks around the regional final as well with Optic.
Yeah. Still a team that has good experience though on LAN for at least 2 of the players, right? So and 2 veterans too on top of that. That's been
they're veterans,
helping
sure.
out the young fraggers. So talking about Def and talking about Aaron, right? I think they have necessarily that veterancy that could actually help with the expectation for the other 3 players. I think I saw definitely some nice improvements into XSET as well, where maps like Ascent, where even Psycho was mentioning it. I don't know if it was like in an interview during the VCTs. I think after they beat Optic, it was like, yeah, we needed to find a way to actually make our Ascent work at some point because we couldn't find a good solution, and then decided to put Zek in, who's supposed to be like a fragger. We always talk about Zek and Kraus, so Zek is like, yeah, I'll play Silva. And then they put BCJ on Smokes as Omen, and then suddenly they have the A side on lockdown between BCJ and also with Def. And BCJ, I mean, he's had experience playing controller before, has had experience playing Omen before, and you just saw like a whole different type of BCJ that played very, very confidently, where he doesn't have to stay back to dart for the rest of the team. So now it actually gives me hope that they actually have like the necessary skill set to be able to change on the fly, maybe agents and compositions last minute when they're going to start learning and about these teams that are currently competing into the VCTs for Denmark, to hopefully see something new coming out of XSET. But I like that they've had some improvements. They finally got over that fourth place curse. Not only that, but winning NA VCTs also shows the confidence that they're gonna or gives them the confidence to say, look, not only did we break the curse, but we also won everything. So you could come out here, you come into this event very, very, very confident to be able to again upset some people into the big stage.
You talked at length about BCJ having a real big impact on this XSET team, but not in the flashiest sort of way, Vance. You feel like this is the kind of performance, this kind of individual that's going to be a boon to them internationally?
I actually think the opposite. I think that on Ascent, he actually had some very good flashy plays, like some very big dick swings and just getting 3Ks against opponents. I think even looking at Ascent, just looking through the stats, like when he's able to get first blood, because he was getting a lot more first bloods playing on an Omen as well on Ascent. They were able to convert that into a win. So he's also a hype man. I think you already saw that from the clips of rounds that XSET are able to win. This guy's just, and we showed it last week, he's just going to be able to rally the troops and make sure that the confidence and the level stays high. So I don't think he's, I know Nostromo's calling him overrated, but I think he's just the perfect person that you need within your composition that maybe doesn't have the international stage, but still has that confidence after listening to his interviews to be like, I don't give a fuck who we're playing, where we're going to be playing, but I know I'm going to give my 110%, 120%, and the team's going to follow me because I'm going to be like the unsung hero / leader to build that hype. Because if you look at the veterancy of Def and Aaron, yes, they have great stage experience, but are they the type of person that's going to be able to be a hype when the team wins a round? Not really. They're really quiet personalities, and it's nice to have that loud, confident personality, especially from somebody like BCJ, who you don't expect to have that type of confidence and joyous whimsy when they're winning these rounds.
Joyous whimsy. I would say as well for XSET real quick that, you know, a lot of people compare them to Guild. I think that XSET and FPX are really similar in a lot of ways. I think these are teams that are some of the most fundamentally strong teams in the world. They understand the game of what they should be doing and what their opponents are trying to do. That's kind of like the problem with teams like, I think, Optic, for example. They're very good at like changing their comps, but some teams you can have a certain 5 agents, change them all out to 5 different agents, but at a fundamental level, play them exactly the same, putting the smokes in the same places. Instead of a recon that hitting backside, it's a Fade's Haunt, right? I think Optic have good ideas on how to use certain agents and utility to do stuff different. So I think for XSET, it's they know kind of how to play. It's just whether those players can show up in the same way that we've seen from like Soigetsu for FPX, for example, or Ardis. Can they have those world-class moments in the server through the qualifiers? We've seen that they can, but I think on an international stage, it's a much taller order to be able to do that when you have other players in other regions looking to do the same, right? So can XSET pound for pound face off against these teams?
And again, that resilience that Optic displayed is something that they might, you know, need to have as well, because being able to adapt to what gets thrown at you is probably going to be more important than just you know, front loading all of that talent and that flashiness. So on that note, I think that's a good opportunity to talk about DRX. Does anyone have any sort of real strong sort of feelings about this team? Right, well, we had Seth on this show to talk through it. I will point out, seemed less confident than he had in the past about this roster, but you know, are we leaning any which way about this roster? Because I mean, we've got people talking. Remember this group, right? Like that, they got their first match up against Norception, and a match that you probably expect them to look pretty competitive. But is this team as rock solid as they always have been expected to be?
For their region, I think Korea still has you know, DRX over and above everybody else, but I don't know, man. I've always given a lot of hope to DRX in the past events, and they always fell flat for me, and it was kind of disappointing, to be honest with you. You know, you still have some players that could still pop off, but and they've tried to do a little bit of meta changes as well by pulling out like a Breach and Neon on Bind with a Fade, which was pretty decent too. But again, it's still against teams that they're just too good against. Yeah. I don't know if they're going to be able to do this kind of stuff in Denmark. I want to see it, but I think I've given up on my hopium for this team.
I see this team definitely getting out of group. I feel like they definitely got the easier group with everything going on for FPX and whatnot. So I feel like they should make it out of the group. Besides that, and after that, I don't see them making a deeper run than just getting out of groups. If anything, it would depend a little bit more on RB just going insane and having some insane performances, which we know that he does, but that puts a lot of pressure into that singular player and the way that everyone is able to complement it. I just don't think, it's one of those teams that you put kind of in the middle, that you're not really expecting it to surprise you, but you're not expecting them to get taken down right away.
I think my only strong opinion for DRX is the point that BCJ made about Stacks. Like, people saying that Stacks is the best, but he isn't. He's mediocre. BCJ is the best. And I just think, like, that's so fucking cap. Like, I understand it. BCJ, I think that you're great. But it's almost like, because Stacks is playing in a weaker region, it makes him look better. It's like, what else is he supposed to fucking do? Start, like, moonlighting in APAC. Just sort of play on another team and see if he can sort of build up the stats there for VLR. It's just, this guy wrote the book on Breach, and I think Breach is that agent that people know how strong he is, to the point that they're trying to sort of almost shoehorn him in onto Bind. And we're getting into times as well where, like, Split is still in play, at least in the competitive scene. There are a lot of teams that like to run Breach on that map and make it work. Haven, I think you kind of need to play Breach unless your KO utility is kind of on point. Yeah, it just sort of feels like, I think he's the thing that makes this happen. And the problem with DRX has always been, people watch them to take all of their strategies to use in the other regions, right? So DRX kind of keep Sturm and try and hide as much as possible and bring out a lot more, because we're in a meta where effectively every agent other than Phoenix works to an extent. So there's a lot of freedom for DRX to bring out some really kooky stuff. Maybe some Euro, we don't know, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting from DRX, or what I want to see from DRX even.
Sure.
At least some neon.
So along that line, then I think we can. The only team we haven't mentioned yet is Fnatic, who finally have a full roster coming into an event like this.
Don't jinx it.
Undisputed.
They still have to travel there.
That is, Jesus fucking Christ, man. I mean, God help them, really. They're in fucking London, cunt. You know? How far is it to Copenhagen?
Durka will swim if he has to, I swear.
Yeah.
Like, he's that pissed off about missing the last one.
Oyster will construct a raft from fucking recyclable straws, tear his t-shirt off, and fucking sing into the sail to propel him across the ocean. That motherfucker will be
like a motor engine just to get it going as well.
Exactly. He's fine. Don't you worry about it. He can just talk in the water and create enough propulsion. They'll just be fucking cruising. All right. So what we think about this team, obviously Enzo and Alfier come into the lineup here. A lot of hype about Alfier as a player. Guy's fucking insane. Obviously, there were some challenges, right? Trying to get his visa and the literal facility burned down. Okay. Turkey things. Still though, where are we at on a Fnatic? You know, are they a favorite? Are they not?
I'm high on this horse. I don't know why people are sometimes thinking that Fnatic might not be as strong as we think, but these guys are still a team that went undefeated in stage 2. Alpha Air looks fucking awesome for sure online right now, and mechanically his decision making is quite cool as well. I just love like some of the games where you're watching him satchel charge to cancel a plant to be able to get some round wins. Enzo's definitely like has been like the missing piece that Boaster needed to be able to help out Fnatic as a whole, as like a secondary voice for the team. Also being able to play that initiator where Boaster could just focus on smoking and fragging. That also helps Boaster into his own fragging department. Mystic, for example, that I always joked about, was like the one that flashed his teammate to allow Fnatic to lose against Sentinels in Berlin for Masters 2. Has been looking really good on this role. And of course you have Durka. That's fucking Durka, right? He went from top 21 to top 2 on everybody's lists from last year to this year. We haven't even had a chance to see him fucking pop off online yet, and we almost had it. He made it there, and then he just had to fly back after, unfortunately. So hopefully we'll be able to see it. My bigger question mark, which is still a hot take for a lot of people still, is how is Alpha Air going to perform on stage? I personally have ranked all of the rookies going into all the rookies this year and all the rookies going into Masters quite low, outside even of my top 10. And everybody says that I'm capping on that one as well. And I'm more than happy to be proven wrong. If Alpha Year could actually continue the way that he does on LAN as he does the online play, then yeah, definitely he's a top 5 player going into Masters 2 for sure.
I almost feel that the alpha year discussion is almost irrelevant. I don't think that that's the thing that I'm looking for Fnatic. Like Fnatic are the third reason why it's like I've got Optic, because Fnatic have looked insane. Like they genuinely have not looked bad in a map at all this stage with this squad. But what happens if they lose? What happens if they just lose a series and go down to a lower bracket early on? Like, have they got what Optic has in droves, being able to bounce back and adjust? To an extent, I don't think it's Alpha that you're looking at to completely falter, because the guy will play Viper and Killjoy when needed. Like, this is somebody that kind of like knows his role and what he's supposed to do, to a point where I don't think it's Alpha go kill, set up the strategy he needs to go clutch at around 3K. He just kind of like knows what spots to exploit. He follows the line of the letter to what Fnatic want to do, right, compositionally and with that sort of macro play style. I just think that does Mini, Boaster, Enzo have that capability to lose up against the team, play them 2 days later, and have enough about them to adjust and go forward with whatever else? If they do, like, this is for me Fnatic's tournament to lose. I think Optic are favorites, but Fnatic, if they play anywhere near as good as they have through the stages, are just going to absolutely make mincemeat of everybody, because they have been superb this stage.
Yeah.
Why don't you guys make some preds then? Fuck it. Let's talk about who we think is going to get out of the groups here. Maybe for some, for Group A, this maybe, I don't know how hard this is going to be, right? Just want to remind you guys, Group A consists of Optic, Guild, Loud, and Crew. So, Vans, we'll do it in order of the portraits here. So, Vans, you get the pleasure of going for, get fucked, right? You're going to have to figure this one out. You have some time,
I already did my pick'ems, so I'm good. I'm just going to look here on my VLR Spike /Rib and whatever website that exists for Valorant, and then just say it. So, I have Optic and Loud. I don't need to say why, because we just spent an hour and a half talking about every single team.
All right, fine. Then, well, okay. Optic's probably going to get out, right? I think Loud. I think Loud.
And then Loud second.
I think Optic. Yeah, Optic, Loud. Yeah, I'm with you there, Vans. All right. Guess you didn't have as much time as I thought, Dryad.
Yeah, I also did my pick'ems, and he had Optic, of course, and then he had Crew. We also mentioned it. We also talked about it. Why I think Crew should be able to get up to win the first matchup. So, yeah, I'm going Crew.
Okay, I like that. So Optic, Loud from me, Optic, Crew from you. Dryan, are you gonna be the only one to pred Guild getting out of this group?
Oh no. It's doable, but I just think that like Optic, Loud, let's be honest, shouldn't fucking be in this stage of the tournament. Like Loud especially, I think should. I feel like, I think it was Tom that said this, of just because Loud got the furthest in the tournament, that it should be them, even if it's 2 LATAM teams coming through and only 1 Brazilian team. Loud by proxy should get thrown into playoffs and then have Crew and Leviathan playing that position. I don't know why they're here. They shouldn't be here.
Yeah. Okay.
You could sort of say something similar with Optic, but top 2 teams from Reykjavik, I don't think that they faltered enough to actually not make it out of groups.
Okay. And I'm obviously Optic, Loud. You put me down the bottom of the list as the prediction you want to put the least amount of stock in, so we can breeze past that and talk about Group B, which consists of FPX, Xerxia, DRX, and Norception. Vans, you're up first again, mate. Having a look at this, I mean, this is hard. This is a fucking hard bracket to figure out, I think. Well, I mean, by process of elimination, it can only be one of 3 teams, but I'm curious to hear what order you think they're going to get out in.
Yeah, I have DRX as probably my #1 seed. I think they'll still be able to beat Xerxia going into the groups, just because of the slow defaults that they play, slow style versus potentially Xerxia trying to play like PRX. It could be stopped. But the tough one is between Xerxia and Norception, but I still have Xerxia because I have them as my dark horse.
Okay. Right. I'll go last. Fuck it.
What the fuck?
I'll
You said
go
we were going
last.
by portrait, asshole.
Well, I was last. Yeah, but then they didn't do that. Production put me last.
Oh,
You know.
I see.
All right,
That's how it
all right,
is.
Dry.
That's
What do
how
you
it
think?
is.
All right, so I also got DRX first seed, and then for the second, I put Xerxia. I feel like for a weekend FPX and for Norception, that I feel like it's not gonna be to the same level as they did in the grand finals. It's just for Xerxia to take.
Okay. Ryan, MEA, Hopium, is it there? Is it dead?
Yeah, FPX come out top of the group, even with standards. Like, I think,
Woo!
like, if we
Okay.
actually had the full 5 players there,
That's fucking
when they're
spicy.
playing the best, like FPX is the best team in the world when they're playing their best. The problem is they played the best Valorant in the world when they're on top of it. The problem is they play consistently bad Valorant, more so than anybody. But the fact that they're so fucking good when they're good sort of makes it look like it's sort of average, right? So, like, nobody can touch FPX when they're playing as well as they have. But there's so many fundamental errors that they make, like pushing one by one, not checking some of the angles. Obviously, there's a lot going on in Angel's life, especially that makes it hard to just have this team
Of course.
be in the right mindset, right? But I do think that FPX have
Despite
something
that,
special about
motherfuckers out there playing Euro and officials, by the
Yeah.
way.
and
Still good on
winning,
TPing on
Breeze,
the
though.
site.
firstly winning at least. Like,
Yeah.
People are shitting on FPX using fucking Yoru, but it's actually quite good on
No,
how
we
they
broke
play
down
it.
we broke down that Breeze round from him when he was
Yeah, that's
TPing
what I'm
forward onto
saying.
that A side. It was kind of
Yeah.
But people just think about the Euro that they use on Icebox or some shit. And then
Well,
they're
you mean the
like,
one that TP's A side and gets shot in the
Yeah.
back of the head? Well,
it's
yes.
But
just like Angel is worth his weight in gold for this kind of team. Even if he wasn't there, you know that he's just effectively going to act as the coach. And everybody, if you can bring an artist into a team where he's not playing selfishly as a duelist and playing with the team, you've got something amazing there to pull a guy that was saying, I walk on fucking water in this game, to
Yep.
supporting his teammates and playing Breach. Like, that's hard to do, right? Imagine
All right,
Ye
then.
playing Breach.
So who's your second team getting through then? FPX first.
Probably DRX. I could
Okay.
definitely see a case where DRX just beat Norception twice. Like, good series, it's kind of one of those things where you want to see Norception, but DRX just fundamentally diff Norception. I think it's close, but yeah, I just think that FPX in a series against DRX are just going to do typical FPX bullshit stuff where Angel's playing Jet and they're going to win.
So you guys don't think that Norception has a chance getting out of this group? Do you think they have a chance against DRX in that matchup? Anybody, or is it just is a wash for them? You think?
I don't.
Yeah,
No, I
damn.
think that there's still upset potential with Xerxia and DRX. I don't think it's clear cookie cut that they're going to be first out of groups.
I can
could
definitely see
them
DRX having to
losing
play
to
Norception
Norception in the
twice.
first
Though.
series.
Yeah, losing to Norception would be huge
Like
as well.
for my pick'ems, like for Optic, for example, I got them losing that first series against Guild. But in the
Okay.
rematch in a deciding qualifying spot, that's where Optic win. It's that kind of thing, I think, where DRX have that ability to come back swinging against their opponent. It just first time playing jitters, probably going to be like an hour tech pause, right, and stuff. So it feels like that kind of stuff where some of the teams that you're looking to do well are going to be a bit rocky to begin with.
I just can't. I can't put FPX getting out of this group, no matter how hard I try and fucking frame her. I just can't do it. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think Xerxia are going to get out over DRX. I think DRX had to get through the lower bracket. But again, this is such a fucking messy group. Yeah, so
Nobody's
I
on
say
the
Xerxia.
Norception
Yeah.
train. Nobody's on the Norception
I
train.
can't. I mean, you literally. I'll be honest.
No.
I didn't watch their fucking playoff game. I use you as a resource, and from everything that you said, I was like, okay, seems like regionally they're strong, but against these teams internationally, like it just doesn't, exactly evoke great feelings of hope for this roster.
The
I don't
question
know what
I
to say.
have about Norception as somebody that again watched a little bit of it and didn't watch too much of Masters Reykjavik at the time, like at the point where like Zeta Division especially were just
Sabbatical, yes.
did Zeta Division look as good as they did at Reykjavik?
No.
So
did not.
could
Did
it be a
not.
similar thing where for like Crew where they showed up massively at Champions, kind of came back to earth a little bit in Reykjavik? Like, if that's the case for Zeta Division, then realistically we can't put Norception that much higher, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going into it going, Z Division got third. Japan's like a major region now in Valorant. So
Mhm.
Norception beating them means that they're second best in the world.
Of course, of course, of
That to
course.
me doesn't quite feel like accurate, I guess.
No, there was a lot of mistakes still being made by Zeta Division. I don't know if it was the jitters of the grand finals or something like that, because they did not look good. They were supposed to win Icebox. They let a lead slip. They did some mistakes on trying to
Yeah.
have a flank when they have a Viper spit down. It just didn't look like it was coordinated. As coordinated and as hype as it was when they were playing during Masters 1.
Okay. Well, there you have it. There's our predictions. I mean, based on fuck all, as it often is the case, but you know, nice to have a little bit of an inkling going in. Make sure you do your pick'ems as well. I remember we have a bet. Nostromo gets banned if Norception don't make top 2. If they do, we apologize. You're fucked, mate. I'm so glad to run this little bet back. I'm not gonna lie. Ryan, mate, thanks for coming back on the show, buddy. What is coming up for you? You said you're going to Copenhagen.
Yeah, gonna go for the last couple of days. Don't know what that's gonna be like, to be honest. I imagine it's gonna be crazy, but there's also probably gonna be just some stupid shit that happens there. So
Take some pictures for us.
I will try. I will try. And also, yeah, just still trying to take it easy mostly. I think
Hell yeah.
I only realized it when I took my break of like I've been just trying hard to just get to that like tier 1 level of Valorant for like fucking 2 years. Like I need to rest.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I've been playing a lot of classic WoW and Disney Mirrorverse as well on the iPad, which is not feeding into my wallet as much as Valorant. So yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, take a break and enjoy Copenhagen, buddy. Dan, thanks for coming on the show once again. Good to get some of your insight as well on what's going on in that LATAM and Brazil region as well. And I think your predictions were pretty saucy. It's good to have you on the show.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Big shout out to my boys at Twitch. Thanks for supporting the show. Thanks for enabling us to do this every week. We'll see you guys later. Next week, of course. Much more to talk about. We're getting ever closer to Copenhagen kicking off. Get excited, everybody. Valorant is starting to get a little spicy. Don't go too far. In the meantime, next Tuesday, 11 a.m. PT. We'll see you there.